Three, two, one. This is Ted Hicks from Late Night Parents. Ways to follow the show, latenightparents.com. I am here. We're recording this on a Friday evening. All-Star Weekend. And guess what? I'm not in Charlotte. And my good longtime friend of 40 years, Shawn Armor, a.k.a. True Armor, you can find him on Twitter, isn't in Charlotte either. He's in VA. So instead of watching the Rising Stars, we thought we would record a pod and not talk about sports. Well, kind of. We're going to talk about the business of sports in regards with Colin Kaepernick versus the NFL and the settlement and Eric Reed and Trump, and all of the rest of that. But, Shawn, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, man.
Man, it's always a pleasure because you are a national treasure when we talk about the world of podcasting and all the above. I got to get you on more frequent. I know our schedules don't always click, but I thought tonight, it was a heavy news Friday, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Like the Kaepernick thing just kind of like snuck in there late. People like to bury things on Fridays because if they would have did this on Monday, the NFL would have had nothing but questions.
They didn't put on Front Street.
Yeah, exactly. So they buried on a Friday night. But yeah, it's the way the corrupt game is played, apparently.
Hey, a lot of topics to get at. We want to talk about another mass shooting in Aurora. Yeah. Dude, Aurora, Illinois. I just want to say, stop the madness.
Another disgruntled. Look, how many Americans do we have here? Our fellow Americans, some 300. I want to say 40, right? 340 million of us.
Yeah.
If you get half of the smallest, if you take 1% of that and you act like that is 100% of them, and then you chop that down to 1%, that's still a boatload of sad boys with guns. I don't really know, other than that, what to say about it. We can't become a society where, down here in Virginia, they're talking about this school where there are armed guards who carry AR-15s, and I'm just kind of like, this is where we're at now. People can't just suck up a loss and find a new job, find a new girl, find a new, reason to challenge tomorrow. You know what I mean? And I don't even know what to say. Five people gone, right? And he shot 6 cops while he did it. If he was mentally ill, let's say he was mentally ill, then the psychiatric community fails us. Somebody needs to be able to spot these guys. It's not like I don't want to use the word crazy, but for lack of a better word, people who are mentally challenged don't have clues. People know that someone is crazy because he's on drugs or just difficult. People know this, and then all of a sudden he does this thing, and people around the world are shocked, but the people in his sphere. And I don't even know how you'd even do that, because now that I listen to myself, it sounds like you're telling, you're ratting people out, you're paranoid about it. The backlog would get ridiculous just by everybody kind of like pointing at everybody. But some of this stuff, there are clues, and the right people need to look at this, because it doesn't make any sense. And if he wasn't crazy, he was just some, on the other spectrum, if he's just some bum who lost his job and was miserable and did this horrible deed, we can't make these people. You know what I mean? We can't keep making these people. So it might have been too late for him, but I'm pretty sure there's a him right now who's in like 7th grade. You know what I mean? You got to stop that guy. You know, and I don't know how you do that. I just think a lot of our societal, social dynamics have been, you know, pushed aside to make everybody a better working, you know, little drone bee. But yeah, man, it's there's clues to why these things happen. You know what I'm saying?
Gonna just jump
they don't just come out of nowhere. Yeah.
I'm just going to jump in here and say I was on the subway today, and I was riding the subway with one of my buddies that I work with. So we were both headed towards – he was heading towards Grand Central Station. I was headed towards Penn Station. I was heading towards Penn Station. He was heading towards 42nd. So Times Square he was heading towards. And a gentleman was coming through the cars on the subway. So I looked through my peripheral vision, and I could see the person coming through the car, and I said, okay. And I was preparing myself for the person to share their story. Well, the person came through the door and did not have a story, so immediately you had to take a secondary step back to say, okay, because we're all trained to hear, oh, hey, I'm from such and such organization, or, I'm homeless, but it wasn't that. So you kind of, okay, that didn't happen. What's going on? And this is before the actual shooting because, we're just trained to be prepared for whatever.
Yeah.
And I just look at these types of situations. I don't have enough information on the person. I know the person was apprehended. The person, I believe, is alive. I
thought he was dead.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they killed him.
Oh, okay. So I just thought I saw something on like the badge app that said the person was apprehended, and I was just like, oh. Okay, so if the person is dead, at the cost.
Yeah, the gunman's dead.
The gunman is dead?
Yeah, he is dead.
Okay, so yeah, it was early on. I saw it on the badge app, and I said, "Oh, here we go, go again." And once again, and early this morning, I saw there were 2 earthquakes in Utah. And I just have to go back to.
Oh my gosh!
You and I sound like broken records because these empty politicians that are saying, Illinois is strong or Aurora is strong, and we're with you, and we stand with you.
They solve no problems.
Love and support your way.
Exactly.
And I'm like, just hollow words.
Yeah.
Hollow words. You're doing nothing. You've done nothing. It was the 1-year anniversary of Parkland, and you could see they done
I saw that.
a whole bunch of nothing.
Yeah. I mean, it's short attention span theater. You know what I mean? It's like as soon as a new story comes up, they drop the old story. You know what I mean? Instead of walking and chewing gum at the same time. You should be able to follow this story and that story and the other story to its logical conclusion. You've got a 24-hour news cycle, which you keep hyping, right? Now I'm beginning to think we don't need 24 hours for this. I think you're making stuff up and you're phoning stuff in. Or if you're giving me 24 hours, there should be no way that there's any such thing as fake news that you should be so precise with what you say. And, I mean, they're just playing a game. I look at these morning news shows because I get up early. I look at these morning news shows as like Sesame Street for adults. I mean, they don't really tell you anything unless there's breaking news, and they have to tell you that, right? Could you imagine there was a plane crash and they didn't mention it and they called themselves a news channel? But meanwhile, most of that 3 hours is telling you about some celebrity, them eating something, and then telling you that there was a bus crash in Wisconsin, which is I've never understood why that's national news. When I lived in Brooklyn, I was like, why are you telling me about a school bus crash? I mean, it's a sad thing, but it's a local story. You know what I mean? But it's to put something on TV.
Are you watching
just
national
to throw
news?
something at you?
Are you watching national
I'm talking
news?
about like you'll watch the Today Show, you'll watch the CBS Morning Show. These and it's essentially Sesame Street for adults. Sesame Street's on at about, I want to say 8 o'clock for little kids, right? And it's on about the same time, but it's 3 hours of people grinning in your face around a table, making you feel like you're sitting with them, and not really going all in on a news story unless it's this celebrity or that celebrity or some other ridiculous thing. Meanwhile, if they were real with those, 4 hours they get, like I said, there would be no such thing as fake news. I mean, how can Fox News be so different from MSNBC and they both call it news? You know what I mean? That tells you that it's not news. That if the weather was reported like the news is reported, Fox News would tell you it's a blistering sunny day today, and MSNBC would tell you there's 4 feet of snow. You know what I'm saying? So I don't really understand how they operate and how anybody who listens to them should have faith in what they say. So I get all the warfare and the hyperbole going back and forth and the rhetoric being slung every place. But if I know it's all hyperbole and rhetoric, then why should I trust it? And this is where we're at with the morning shows and the news cycles. So, short attention span theater. We just get enough to keep us titillated, and then we're off to the next thing. And just when you think, I can't take another crazy story like the shooting story, they'll go, oh, look who's dating in Hollywood. And then, or they'll tell you, oh, look who broke up. It's that. Meanwhile,
I don't need to tell
government
you
shutdown just got averted.
I don't need to tell you this, that I guess I watch things in stages or in specific seasons because if you look at the news, specifically if we're looking at national news, it's nothing but puff-piece segments.
Yeah.
Nothing but puff-piece segments of people hawking their products and or, paying for sponsorship time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the local, which is like a News 12, I don't know if you remember News 12 up here in New York.
I do, yes.
Oh,
yes,
yeah, like
I do.
The super
in Brooklyn.
Hyper local.
Yeah.
Where you could say, hey, I live in Long Island, and you know what? I want to see Long Island news. And they're like, oh, well, here's what happened in Bayshore. Here's what happened in Uniondale. And you're like, oh, okay. So I'm not hearing about, Sheboygan, Alaska, if there's an issue.
Exactly. And it's like that's a good point too, because you'll hear, like I said, about like the school bus accident on a slippery road in Jackson Hole, and you live in, and it'll be on the. And don't get me wrong, if a horrible thing happens with a school bus and children, and it's national news, I get that. But we're talking about car accidents with school buses that slid off the road. No children were hurt. People may have been shaken. It's still a local story, and this is what you get. And as they give you that, the next story is, woman empowerment, which is great. But then the next story will be how to shed pounds and what lipstick to wear. It's always just kind of like this hot mess of goofiness. But then you get real world consequences that you didn't see coming. Like I remember when they killed off the filibuster. It's just the system is just so wacky. It's hard to know where it's going. And now it seems to be crumbling under its own strain. Nancy Pelosi with her clapping at State of the Union, just open derision of the president. I'm like, that's where we're at now? You're just going to sit 3 feet from him and look at him like, it's like it's a bad soap opera. It's just, but meanwhile, there are real people here who need real work done in this country, and they're in charge of doing it. And their whole position is, half of them, their position is the government shouldn't do anything for you, and the other half is, actually a quarter of it is the government shouldn't do anything for you, the government does too much. And the other, half of that is the government should do everything for you, and it's just, it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine to go off on yet another tangent. I was talking to a friend of mine because she wrote something flippant. I don't want to say flippant. She wrote something sort of kind of like, let's call it flippant. But in the best sense of flippant, right? She wasn't trying to be mean-spirited. About hippies, right? And I hold hippies close to my heart because when I was a kid, all the adults were hippies. And
okay.
I told her that, you know what? They shouldn't be ridiculed because they were right. They were for environmental protection, right? They were for loving who you want. They were for equal pay for women. They weren't for fairness. They were for protesting, right? You know what I mean? They were for running non-traditional candidates. And the only thing we ever think about is the drug problem, which I think a lot of them was sort of pushed into some of the more affluent ones to kill off this movement. But they weren't wrong. And here we are, 50 years later, still dealing with the stuff that they said was righteous, and you're just making weed legal, right? And that was another thing that. So it's the whole thing is just people who the witness tell the tale, right? Isn't that what they say about history? But we're close enough to history to know who's conning us and who isn't. I mean, the tobacco industry got away with straight murder and never paid a nickel for their lives and all the lives that were lost after they knew, that their product was bad. And let's say it took them 100 years before they were like, oh, wow, tobacco kills you, around 1935 or so. Then they just started lying and selling it to Hollywood and trying to get you to smoke when they all knew it was bad. And from that period up until the late 80s, they were lying to Congress that tobacco wasn't addictive. And at the end of the day, they all get to keep the cash and die in their beds. And then you wonder why the system is as wacky and screwy as it is. I mean, the idea of shutting down the government is so ridiculous. And everybody accepts it as a common occurrence. It's so ridiculous. Let's think about this. Let's say you get off a plane and you got hop in a cab, and someone goes, hey, can I share this cab with you? And then he hops in and he goes, okay, we'll share this cab. And he goes, you know what? I'll just sleep on your couch. And that just becomes a thing. Like people taking random strangers home. If you share a cab, you must let them sleep on your couch. You and I sitting here right now, your listeners sitting here will be like, that is just the most ridiculous thing. But stupid stuff gains foothold, and before you know it, it becomes like a normal and natural thing in your environment. And then you teach it to your kids, and before you know it, in a generation, which is about 15 to 30 years, depending on who you ask what a generation is, you've got this new practice, right? And then we, as the old people now, get to go, when I was a kid, we didn't do that. That was ridiculous, You just keep accepting more and more, let's say, one-ofs in your system, and then before you know it, your whole system is just these one-of compartments that don't work together in the whole. You know what I mean?
I want to stop you. I want to stop you for a second. For a second because you said something about 45 seconds ago. How does it feel to be considered? We're not young people anymore. We see things differently. We're more and more, day by day, we're seeing things like our parents saw them, and how our parents used to be. You know, I can remember us being on the block on 225th Street saying, my dad is acting like a crab today. Yeah, he's not happy about X, Y, and Z that's happening.
My dad hated rap music. He hated that.
Yeah.
We used to make him turn it up in the car. He was like, what are they? Yeah, exactly. And now I'm sitting here going, God, that is not music. What is that? He didn't even rhyme the bar. The bars don't rhyme. I mean, his whole verse is 3 sentences, and then he says the hook over and over. This is what's wrong with rap music today, right? And I'm there. I was complaining about Cardi B today, and not so much Cardi B, but rap in general, in the sense that the system, we were talking about economics, and that the system is so ganked against people in some places that it's a common thing that she was a stripper and some other stuff, I guess. And just like it's a common thing that all these rappers were drug dealers and other things, I guess. But this is it. It's now if they get successful, they get to go to the Met and go to the Oscars and hang out and to get their pictures taken in Vogue. But on the come up, you know, this is what they've become comfortable with in their environment. That there's so little opportunity for so many people that if you don't go to college, you're going to have to end up doing more and more drastic things if your stomach can take it. And she obviously, you know, went let's call it a non-traditional route. And mind you, like I said, I was raised by hippies. I don't have an issue with how you get there. But my problem with why you had to do that is where I'm always at. You know, I think if she had, you know, could have gone to an art college to be a rapper, Tupac did, right? But at the end of the day, the guys are selling drugs because the economics are dead, and the smart ones throw that into music and money and turn the money, right? And since the women can't do what the guys do, get into these fisticuffs and take these risks, they have a separate route. And that now openly accepted separate route is this sexual adventuring to get money, to get studio time, or however it's done, to get yourself put out there in this digital world. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's the whole system is just ridiculous. You get in what you get out. You put in how does that go? You put in what you get out. Good in, bad out. It's something like that.
Your input should determine your output. It should. I don't think that's the case.
I'm thinking the one I was thinking was junk in, junk out is what it was. Right? It's the idea of like if you don't put quality, it's like eating, it's like a diet, right? You don't put quality stuff in your system won't run well. And the older we get, the better we should take care of our system because we become vintage versus these young hot rodders who are, you know, the latest model, and God bless them. But you know how it is. I mean, I know you got a lot of millennials. Millennials are taking heat, and I love millennials because I'm like, it sounds like people are picking on them when they didn't even get their chance on that bat. They didn't ruin anything. They're not in any power, right?
I
like you were saying, we're the youngest of the old people now, right?
Yes.
I just hit 51. So the next 20 years we'll be senior. But we're essentially that mix. I still love rap music and working out and being, you know, but there's some stuff that I'm just kind of like, all right, I can't mess with it. Like I was telling my nephew, if you're still getting into fights by the time you're 27, shame on you. You know what I mean? And that's what the whole culture seems to be, just kind of like everybody's extra, and I'm not extra anymore.
Everyone is extra.
But you can't hate on them for being extra because I think that goes with being young, right? We were extra for our day, but right now, I guess every era is a different era. So I'm saying right now it's crazy. But I'm sure my father would have said our era was crazy. There was guns every place and crack dealers and house parties and Studio 54 and the Palladium. You know what I mean?
You got to stop. You got to stop. You got to stop.
And my grandfather would say that about my father because he had doo-wop and rock and roll and Elvis Presley. You know what I mean? It's always going to be different. So at least I try and give the young people a break and feel them because it helps me not feel like I'm 99. But it also kind of like keeps me sort of connected as what's important, and I think that's sort of important. But yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna say that in our era, when it was 1986 and crack was everywhere, every urban neighborhood, and you saw you saw someone who lived on your block who was prominent, who was walking around like a zombie at nighttime. That was pretty bad back then. But I'm guessing, in the 60s, there was also, that specific era to today with opioids is just, through the roof, where, people are just dying.
Yeah.
People are just
and
dying,
why?
just being dead.
People make it seem like, these white boys, they got all this money and all this time, so they just get caught up on opium. I mean, a lot of these, what did they use? What was the slur for poor white guys? Depending on what area of the country you're in, there's a slur for poor white guys, right? And they get beat by this weird system too, but they can, I mean, not everybody can be taken care of in this system. So some people fall out of their own.
It's a tough situation. It's a
Some
tough situation.
people fall out of it of their own accord, like get involved with drugs. But some people are backed in the corner to selling it. And man, again, I said this the last time on your show. If this place collapses, I mean, because the citizenry will let it go, then shame on the citizenry. I mean,
listen, there's poor white people and poor black people out here.
Yeah.
Poor brown people out here. A lot of people out here struggling. They're struggling because they might have an addiction. And they're struggling because they don't have the necessary resources to get help. So then we see the big difference with the various races. And you can see the ones that are able to get help, meaning they are able to go to rehab centers or.
Right. I mean, remember, there's only so many beds, right?
There's only so many beds.
Exactly.
So it's a tough situation everywhere you look at.
Yeah, but if you commit a crime or want to smoke something, or before you know it, you're addicted to something, or if you know what I mean, and then before you know it, you're in the judicial system, and the judicial system has a ton of beds for you. You know what I'm saying? The only place that has more room for you than necessary is jail. I mean, prisons always, they're not turning anybody away. And now they're having guys, run prisons for cash. So, yeah, I mean,
the only
this
thing
society has become.
I've said over the years that what are two things that are recession-proof? I said, and we learned this at the Million Men March in 1995, that ballparks are always being built. Look at it. Stadiums are always being built, and prisons are always being built.
Yeah.
Just look at it. If you look at the span and you go to Google tonight, and this is what we want people to do that are listening to the podcast, you go to Google tonight, you look at the amount of ballparks and prisons that have been built over the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Endless.
It's outrageous.
Endless.
I don't know.
So, hey,
I think if we're not careful, we're going to keep telling like these kids to follow their dreams up until they graduate like high school, when they realize that there was no dream to follow and they essentially got conned. Then they begin to get restless and wonder what to do with themselves and where should they go. You know, I'm sure a lot of people wanted to be artists and, you know, and architects and doctors and all this stuff. But by the time, I mean, you get there, the schools are overcrowded, and you know what I mean? So before you know it, you're just
not per se the schools are just overcrowded. I'm just going to say there's a lack of, after you get that specific degree, there's a lack of availability in the workforce.
I agree with that.
You're sitting here and you get this degree in basket weaving,
and now you owe a ton of Now you own a ton of debt, and you got
a ton of debt, and you're
greeting cards degree.
Right. You're wondering, what am I going to do now? And then you go back to mommy and daddy. And mommy and daddy says, well, you need to go get a job because we're sitting on the $60,000 in loans that we have to pay, and you've taken out loans in your name, and they're going to start looking for you within 6 months.
Right, exactly.
You know,
and on top of it, it stems you from being able to, you know, have a relationship and get married because you've got all this debt. You know, God forbid you have kids.
Debt is terrible.
So now you've got kid debt and marriage debt, maybe divorce debt. You know, you got credit card debt, you got student loans. How you ever, I mean, this is why the majority of the country can't come up with $1,000 if they needed to. You know, it's in the 50s, home ec taught you. Even we had this when I was in junior high school. They taught me how to make pasta, boil water and put, you know, make meatballs and put sauce on it. But I'm like, that was the first serious thing I cooked, and I cooked it at school, other than helping my mom out. You know what I mean? Shawn, go over there and stir that. Okay, Ma. Turn that oven down and cut that, you know, those kind of simple things that you do with your mom. But that was not health class. That was a home ec. So they taught you home ec. They taught you a few simple recipes, like how to boil water, how to make pasta, you know, how to cook chicken. They didn't have to tell you how to fillet anything. But they also taught you home ec, which was how to balance your budget, how to balance your checkbook, you know, all these things that they don't teach you anymore. As teachers go, I want more money. You wonder, you're paying people more for gutting the system. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying teachers shouldn't be paid, but at the same time, their whole concern shouldn't just be themselves and money. The whole thing is broken. I mean, they've become babysitters. And if they're going to be babysitters, you know, why don't you just hire non-college degree babysitters then, if you're just going to mangle it this badly? But no one, I'm talking about in Congress now, solves these problems. They keep telling you it's all right to have less. And
hey, I'm gonna jump in here because I'm married to an educator, a teacher. So just in case if she downloads the podcast, I want to say teachers do deserve. They do work very hard. And
don't get me wrong.
They do deserve the raises that they're supposed to get. It's everyone's in a tough situation.
Well, okay,
every which way you go.
Okay.
That's me just cleaning up my end. That's just me.
Right. No, I feel you. Right. No, I feel you. Look, I think there's bad actors in all groups. I went to New York City Public High School, and what's that Biggie Smalls line? It's all good. This is for all the teachers who called the cops on me when I was just trying to. All the neighbors called the cops when I was trying to feed my daughter. Remember that opening line?
Right.
I think it's for Juicy, right? And there's a line in it about teachers. These are for all the teachers who told me I wouldn't them out the. You know.
Yes.
Teachers. I mean, I grew up with teachers oh man, I can't even express it. And I know all these teachers who are sitting here telling me this, like, being a teacher is like a calling from God. And I don't want to go in on teachers, but there are bad teachers. There are teachers who have said some vile and ugly things to me about me and about my mother. You know what I mean? It's so when I hear these stories, I'm just kind of like, ooh. You know, what you want is the best teachers. You want a standard of behavior and respect to the students, but teachers are in a bad spot because I view that they do have to work. This is me conceding to teachers. They do have to work. If you send an unruly kid to school, it's not on the teachers to and then that kid becomes a problem for the whole class. But having said that, there's a lot of teachers who shouldn't be teachers who are, you know, locked into these unions who are unfireable. I'm talking about New York because I know that system, who are unfireable, and they should be fireable. You know, so you get into this. Like I said, the whole system is standalone complexes. So I'm sure, and it'll probably be some teacher who fixes it, who knows what the problem is and how to resolve the problem.
So what? It's going to be a teacher that's going to fix it locally or nationally?
Yeah, no, that's another thing. If you have a teacher who's brilliant locally, no one adopts that nationally. You know, they just let it die on the vine. You know what I mean? Because people have these little cliques, and it's all over the place. So if you said your wife is a teacher, if your wife came up with like an education plan, a way to study, and all her kids were highly sought after, yeah, she would end up on TV. Yeah, someone would want her to write a book. But the nation as a whole would not adopt it. You know what I mean?
Why not?
I mean, Texas didn't want to change.
Why not?
Because there are all these fiefdoms every place. Texas did not want to change their history book, and because not Texas, I think I want to say not the book industry, but since Texas is so big, Texas had an oversized influence, is what it was, in what went into this book. That way, the publisher didn't have to make 1,000 copies of this and have one copy for Oregon, one copy for New York, one copy for Tennessee, you know what I mean? That way, they could just kind of go, okay, we'll fudge it, the history. So of the 50 million books that we make, which 40 of them, I'm just making up these numbers, 40 million of them are going to go to Texas. We won't harsh about what they want in this book. But meanwhile, it was the same kind of revisionist history of a series of groups and peoples, and there was enough blowback that they had to stop that because you're an education book, you dummy, you know. Don't tell people that slavery was about northern aggression, you idiot. You know what I mean? Who's going to take you seriously? You're making children's education books here. And they sort of had to back off of it. But this is what you get. So if your lovely lady came up with a way that kids who were not engaged are all of a sudden engaged, and it works for everybody, it would, instead of someone at the education system in Washington going, wow, this is pretty brilliant. This is going to make all our kids smarter and increase their IQ points or grade scores or whatever have you by a good margin. This is a new thing. We need to all get on this. We're still on, you know, everyone's on the metric system but us. What is it? I was called the, oh my God, it shot right out of my head. But it's this kind of stubbornness that.
You talking about Common Core?
No, mileage. Our mileage system is called, I'm sorry, I'm cursing. I'm going to have to look it up. But there's the metric system, and then there's our system, which is, I don't even know what it's called. But we use miles and feet and inches, and they use kilometers and meters and centimeters. But the whole world uses meters, centimeters, you know. If you watch PBS, when they give information, they don't even give you both. They just do the European way. They just tell you, you know, we're driving down this road. It's 50 kilometers to the Great Pyramid, and but they don't go 50 kilometers, which is 35 miles an hour, 35 miles or something like that. But they don't even bother. They're supposed to be an education channel, and I always wanted to just tweet at them why don't you hit it both ways? But then they come back with, like, why don't you just learn the metric system? But I'm like, PBS gets public money. What, you know what I mean? So that's a fiefdom. That's kind of like just this elitist kind of, you know what I mean? But you can't say it's there because of I'm about to say aggression, but disrespect to, like, people. I mean, people get left behind. And these people who really think about other people will do things like this. And you find that in, like, government, another standalone complex. You want your whole thing to work like a smooth running, organized machine, how you educate people, but you do this weird thing with the metric system in a country that doesn't use it. You know what I mean? So if you go, wow, the New York City Marathon is 26.2. Right, 26.2 miles. And the next year, the New York City Marathon people start going, oh, the New York City Marathon is 13 kilometers or what? Not 30. It's more than that. It's 32 kilometers or some craziness. People will begin to have an issue with it, right? Because we don't do the metric system here. Why are you making me do extra math? But now, in all these education shows on PBS, which is always trying to help us out with, they've abandoned telling you this is modern. You might have, like, subversively taught somebody the metric system. And it's just why I'm beginning to think people don't want people to actually do all the reading or all the fairness, because they're taking cursive out of school, and cursive is a big thing. And now, another thing that they're taking out of schools, as they charge you more.
Hey, Shawn, we just got to have a quick break. This is Late Night Parents. Ways to follow the show is latenightparents.com. I missed the last break, and I get chastised about it by some of our friends. Some of our friends are like, hey, sometimes you drone.
You burn right through the stop sign.
You burn right through that stop sign, that bright red stop sign.
Exactly.
I wanted to give a holler to KOYO in Auroville, California, who has downloaded the show. We want to say thank you. Of course, our good friends at WRAQ, upstate New York. Also, Global Community Radio on the interweb that always sources the show out. I want to say thank you guys for supporting the show, as always. And you can go to latenightparents.com where you can find it's so there's like 3 different versions. And Shawn, we're going to go right back to your topic, but I want to say there's 3 different versions. So on Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we air on 12:40 a.m. And 95.9 WGBB. That show, for the most part, we keep it PC. It's a 60-minute, about 55-minute format. We keep it clean.
Right.
General topics. We have the guest of the week, and we kind of don't let loose. The website, which I handle, I put whatever topics that are up there, and the podcast is the podcast because that is our own. This is, the show on Sunday is FCC, and it's also sourced out to various community radio stations across the nation. So. Right. But the website and the podcast, we kind of have at it. And a couple of people get burnt up from time to time, and that's okay. But that's the way we like to do it. So with that, I wanted to send it back over to you. You were talking about you were going in a couple of different directions.
Right.
You were going in a couple of different directions. So
I might have finished what I was saying. I think I'm done. But, it's...
Well, I mean, the public education is a great topic, and it's so funny because I remember when Common Core was being implemented, and I had an educator on the show, and she was kind of laid back, and it wasn't my wife, but
Right.
I had an educator on the show, and she was talking. I had her on the show just many, many years ago, maybe in 2014. Man, we've been doing this for a while. I just thought about that. It was probably 2014. I don't think it was 2013. Common Core was getting rolled out across the nation, and she was talking about some of the problems that she's running into.
Right.
And I can tell you, for one, being a parent of a son who has experienced issues with, the way that the math is done. Not to say he needs an accommodation or anything like that. It's just the way we were taught math 30 or so years ago, maybe closer to 40 years ago, is solely different than what's going on today.
Yeah.
And where it's kind of like where the parent feels helpless, because you're like, hey, here's how I would do this. I'm not sure why you have to do it in 6 steps when we can do it in maximum 3 steps.
Yeah, what's that movie? I'm sorry, go ahead. I just that scene in The Untouchables not The Untouchables.
Which one?
What's that Disney movie with the superhero family? But there's a
The Incredible.
scene in that.
The Incredible.
The Incredible. There's a scene in that where the father tells the boy he's trying to help him with his home. He goes, "It's math. Why would they change math?" And I've always thought about that when my brother was trying to help his girls with the homework, and what did they call it? The new math. I was like, but it's math.
Math.
Why would you? So yeah, and now you got it. They want it a certain way.
They want it a certain way. They want 6 steps. So instead of 6 hops, instead of 5 or 6 hops, and if you don't do the 5 or 6 hops, so it's like this. Let's say we both focus on one answer, right? And that answer is 5 points. I do it in 3 steps. I don't get the 5 full points. I get maybe 3.5 points. And if you do it in the 6 steps, you get the full 5 points. And I'm like, this is insane. I'm sorry. And we sit here and we toss and we tangle with this stuff every night, where I'm like, okay, so here's what I would do. And the first thing I say is, I'm not in the class with you, so I'm not sure how they showed you to do this.
Right.
Here's what I would do, and because I don't want to confuse you. And they, for some strange reason, they want to see all these different hops. And I got to tell you, for me, this has been utterly painful, because I'm sitting here saying, am I helping him or am I hurting him?
Right, yeah, right. You don't want to undermine what they're trying to teach him, right? You know what I mean?
I don't.
So they're like, well, we need these 5 steps. You're like, well, I can teach it in 3. Then before you know what I mean? I thought the whole point was to get to the right answer, but people tell me it's how you get to the right answer matters, right? So it just can't be right. It has to be, like you said, those 5 steps, and I don't understand it. And I think, like, again, standalone complex. The teachers out there should be in their best interest to make sure not just the kids understand it, but at least the parents understand why it's done that way. The parents don't need to do the assignment, but when the parents go, I don't know why you changed math, they should be able to share with the parents in a way that, and make it understood that this is why this new thing is important, right? I don't know, maybe the world changed and, the way, I don't know, but tell me something other than this is the way we want it. And if a lot of it always reminds me of shopping nowadays, where in the old days you could go and somebody knew something about what you're talking about. TVs, they knew about music in the audio department. They knew about cars in the car department. Now it's just kind of like, I don't know. Like, why am I in here shopping with you? I'm going to Amazon. And then you will be out of a job in like 6 months because other people are going to go to Amazon. It's this idea of trying to keep a I guess a well-balanced, well-lubricated system up and running, but you can't do that with too many of the moving pieces that make society sort of what's the word? Taken away, edited down to its barest, you know.
Okay.
I mean, it's when is stew soup? You know what I mean? So if I'm making beef stew and I just keep taking stuff out, when is it just watery soup? When is it just kind of like, you know, vegetables, one you know, beef cube, but mostly opaque water because I removed so much. How long can I call that an education? You know what I mean? Versus just like when can I stop calling the beef stew and call it soup, or call it whatever the in between is? What is it? Stews? Yeah, stews, right? Beef stews, soups, and I don't know, broth, I guess, right? When it's just the flavoring of water. When is it broth and there's nothing in it? I don't understand what the people in charge are doing here. It's crazy. Like I was losing my mind today about the Colin Kaepernick thing. You want to talk about Kaepernick?
Yeah, let's go Kaepernick because you know, social justice warriors have been out and in full support of Colin Kaepernick during this full run for the last, I would say, two years. Two and change.
Yeah.
On him not kneeling for, you know, and they were for solid issues.
Yeah, exactly.
This violence that takes place, this brutality that takes place against young black men. And before we get into it, I got to tell you, yes, you know, and I hate to go there, but I got to go there.
Mm-hmm.
But my son is 11. Guess what conversation I'm you know, scheduled to have with him?
Yeah, about how to act when the cops are around, when the cops pull you over.
Guess what conversation? Yeah. You know,
is that the one?
There's only one demographic that has to have these conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. This will be the 400th year that we've slaves arrived here in Virginia. 20 odd slaves, I think, is the phrase on the first documented. But 400 years and we're still here doing the same ridiculousness. You know, stop being unfair. And people are going, no, we're not going to stop being unfair. Stop being unfair. No, we're not going to stop. It's goofy.
So today, and you know, I kind of felt like the breadcrumbs were being dropped because yesterday it came out that, you know, there's a new springtime football league called the AAF. I think it's the Alliance of American Football League.
Right.
And it came out of nowhere. Breaking news. You saw it, you know, across your Twitter feed that the AAF had approached Colin Kaepernick to join them.
Right.
Now they're only paying players $80,000 a year. So the 3-year deal, $250,000, and the word came from upon high that Colin Kaepernick said, if you want me to join your league, it's going to cost you $20 million for 1 year. Okay.
Right.
So that was part one. And then part two, we kind of wait for the other shoe to drop. We kind of wait, and we're waiting, and it's Friday, and I'm on my way on the train, I'm heading home, and I'm like, and then boom, right in your feed, how the news just drops, that Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reed have settled with the NFL for an undisclosed amount, and it's over. And you kind of wonder, okay, who won here? We can debate on that in the next couple of minutes. We can
the NFL
also
won here.
We can also discuss.
Oh, I'm sorry. Should I have waited?
Yeah.
The NFL
we can
won
also here. we can also discuss, with the NFL, it's their PR spin, because guess what? Guess who's going to be having those rallies by the time blink your eyes? Donald Trump, our president.
Yeah.
And who does he like to rail against? The NFL. And players kneeling and calling players, SOBs and all of this other stuff. So I think they want I think it's a known fact that they want no beef with Donald Trump. So they're saying, hey, okay, let's get this settled. Let's get him paid off and let this be a non-issue. Because, and as I turn this over to you, Colin Kaepernick has signed a $129 million or so contract with the San Francisco 49ers. He only received $39 million of those dollars.
Right.
So there's a delta, to say, of $80 to $90 million. So I'm putting that.
Not to mention the embarrassment, and they dragged him out and disrespected his name and all this. So there's going to be money for that. So and not
to mention that he missed 2017, 2018. Okay, so I'm going to hand this over to you with the question of the settlement came down. We don't know any amounts. In your eyes, Shawn, who won?
I think the NFL won. I think clearly the NFL won. I think this is why I was angry. I supported Colin Kaepernick, right?
Okay.
The idea of it to me was there's the guy who wrote the guy who wrote the anthem, Scott Key, Francis Scott Key, was a racist. He was a racist lawyer, right? And we only read the first part of it, but it's essentially like it's got some I'm about to say chapters like it's a book. It's got some verses that's clearly racist. So that becomes a symbol for like that ties in. That doesn't become a symbol. The flag is a symbol, right? Becomes tied in with this cop abuse of people. It's been all over the paper in the past few years, right? So then some people who are the enemies of fairness, I guess, somehow equated unfairness in our system, right, with disrespect for the flag, even though like a lot of the military guys were like, we feel this, and he got help with doing this with a military guy, right? So they didn't think it was what it was categorized as. So fast forward to today, where it was about unfairness and all this thing. This whole thing today tells me it's about Colin Kaepernick, right? So Colin Kaepernick signed this thing. What gets me is the confidentiality agreement, because now he can't talk about this. It was supposed to be about unfairness and them colluding, right? So it's like I told who did I tell? Anyway, but the idea is if Dr. King, right, showed up and was like, okay, we want to ride the front of the bus, and I forgot what town it's in. I want to say Memphis. We want to ride the front of the bus, and the town was like, no black people in front of the bus. he was like, we're going to boycott everything until we can ride the front of the bus. And then the bus company said, okay, you know what? We're going to let you, Dr. King, ride the front of the bus, but nobody else. And he said, okay, I'll take it. You know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. It's this was sort of bigger than him, and now it's over. And the NFL has, I think, just paid him to go away. And you know, he's not a civil rights. I mean, he's become a civil rights symbol, but he's a sports guy. Right.
So what happens? So listen, what happens if
I supported him?
Donates,
I guess he got his
so
check,
what happens
and now
if
it's
he?
over.
So what happens if he donates the funds that he received today to social?
But that's
justice
corny.
issues?
He shouldn't have to do that. I mean, if he wanted to donate funds, he's a millionaire already. He could have. That to me always is a dodge. It feels. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like Maroon 5. Oh, look, we're going to give money to this after-school program, even as we, you know, do what a lot of us would say was essentially cross a racial picket line. You know, but no, who cares? All these social justice people still listen to Maroon 5. All these young college kids, millennials who say that they're for fairness, they're not going to judge them, and that's the problem. No one holds anybody to account. If somebody, here's an example. Jerry Seinfeld was on the Colbert Report talking about how he used to love Cosby, right? Those old albums, they were great. And he was like, I still like him. I can separate Cosby from his actions. And he was like, can you? And then Colbert was like, oh, no, I cannot do that. Oh, I'm so, you know, da-da-da-da. So after they come back from the break, Seinfeld is like, you know, I thought about it over the break, and yeah, no, I couldn't never listen to him again. And you know, so you understand what I'm saying? People, the path of least resistance is where people are. And this is kind of that. I mean, it's been 2 years. He should have been playing. They held him out as hating the country and all this stuff. Just because I agree with you that it was unfair, and I agree with him, I can offer nothing to him. You know what I mean? Other than support. And at the end, some days you just need to, you know, you just want to stop fighting and go home, right? So he'll take this as a win, but at the end of the day, the NFL stopped people from kneeling. They're still associating that with that flag. It's all just so unseemly, and they have the nerve to be called a charity, you know. And then it's all just I think they handle black people like when black athletes have these issues. It's more to grandstand with look at what we're doing with this kind of bad. When it always strikes me as just ew. And
so how do you feel?
This
how do you
adding
feel?
To all that is just.
So how do you feel the NFL handled the Super Bowl? Because they were in
I think
Atlanta.
they got what they wanted. They got what they wanted. You know, it's like no one should have performed there if they were serious, right? But you can't half-ass support the cause. You know, it's like even Cardi B did some of this. Didn't she do halftime Super Bowl shows and all this stuff? She should have just went home and had to be able.
She did pre-shows and she did a commercial.
Did she half-assed it? She should have just hung out at her house with her friends. And if you're gonna watch it, fine, watch it. But once you know what I mean, there's an insincerity to it. It's like you sat around with manipulative people, like, how far do you think I can go with this and still make money on the day? You know what I mean? How far do I have to? Well, we're taking a beating on this and record sales here. Okay, then we're out. You know, it's that kind of half in, half out activism. I mean, there doesn't seem to be any real commitment, real core to it anymore. And I'm from people who are activists. You know, like I said, all these civil rights people, these Black Panthers, these Flower Children, they were all over the place in Brooklyn in the 60s, marching and telling you the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind and all this nonsense. So all these years later, the hippies were right, but they lost that war, right? I believe the civil rights movement is over. I really do. I believe that we lost. All these pretty words in a Dr. King statue, but look, they killed the guy a couple of days ago for sleeping in his car, a rapper. So, I mean, I had faith, but I'm not stupid. My faith is gone. I'm not going to just keep having blind faith. I can have hope. I still have hope, but my faith is gone. So all these things, if you're not a foolish person, tells you to change your, I don't want to say change your heading, but to operate with eyes open and not to expect so much in this environment. And, you know, the environment is just, everybody is about a payday. And like I said, if everybody's about a payday, your kids get less and less. And now you're wondering why there's so many kids in your, 45 kids in a classroom, but less teachers, but the teachers want more money. But, it's all just, the whole thing needs to be fixed. And every time a problem shows up, people don't really fix the problem as much as patch it, which then it bubbles out someplace else on another side of the bicycle tire. So
I'm not sure what year this was, but I think I was speaking with one of my daughter's teachers, and there was one class where there was team teaching, and they told me
team teaching or teen teaching.
Team, TEAM.
Oh, team.
Teaching. Oh. But in that class, there were like 45 students. I was just like, huh? I said, so anyone who's not up to par or up to snuff is going to get left behind.
Yeah.
I said, I don't know why I just threw that in there. I just thought about that. And I just, because over the years, when you have so many different interactions and you sit there and you're like, what? Like, what are you telling me?
Yeah.
So last week we went to my son's, kind of like, not meet the teacher, but it was a PTA or, know, parents and teachers meet up.
Conference kind of thing, right.
Right. So there was his STEM teacher. And his STEM teacher, so we sat down, we shook hands and everything else like that. Had my son there. He was present for all of these meetings because I think it's important so that, because you hear one story and then you're going to hear another story and then there's the real story. So
right.
I like to have everyone in the same vicinity so we can get to the bottom of this. So he was given for the second marking period, he was given a grade of a 76. But the STEM teacher was like, he can do so much better. He can do this. He can do that. I'm not sure he's completing his work and all of this other stuff. Rambling on and on and on and on and on. And I could see, I'm not sure if my son had said something slick to him or, irked him or something like that.
Right.
Because I could see that look on his face where I was just like, geez. I said, it seems like either, if not my son, then a few of the students must have gotten under his skin. And we were going back and forth during the session because during these PTA sessions, they're only like scheduled for like 7 minutes in length. So it's like verbal diarrhea. I'm just going to unload on you about your kid. Either he's great, he sucks, or he's he's really attentive, or he's a distraction. So, but I just couldn't get over the fact that he was. I mean, this teacher, young teacher, probably is going to be a great teacher, but he was going in, and I wanted to stop him and say, you almost gave him. You gave him a B-, So what am I missing here? But I just let the teacher ramble. But it just goes into...
Can I play devil's advocate?
Yeah,
Can I play devil's advocate? How many times have you had a teacher's conference with this dude?
Wait, ask that question again.
I'm just wondering if you've met him in the same circumstance before, and if he was different or the same.
I had only met him on like Meet the Teacher night.
Right.
And
without the kids. Without the kids.
Meet the Teacher night was without the child,
okay.
But first marking period, parent teachers was with the child. Second marking period, which was last week, was with the child there because I like to just let's get down to the bottom of it. If there's an issue,
let's solve it.
We're going to nip it right in the bud right here.
Exactly.
Plus, I know my son. He likes to, he likes to pop off.
Right, like teenage boys. Exactly.
Right. But I just thought it was. I thought it was just interesting because we were talking about teachers and we were talking about large classrooms and that's not the case. It's not a large classroom. It's it's for the most part self-contained, and I just didn't get it. I just don't know why. I'm not sure how we tie that into Colin Kaepernick. I'm going to go in the opposite way and say I think he won. I think he won the PR war because, number one, he won that PR war with getting that paycheck from Nike,
right?
Them making him the cornerstone face,
right,
for their product and their Play of the Year or whatever accolade he received. I'm sure, potentially, I'm thinking no less than $80 million that he's probably received. And on the high end,
I would say that.
Only because
I would say about that.
Only reason I think of is because the contract that he signed and he didn't get to fulfill that contract. I don't think we will see him back in the league. I don't think we will see him as an analyst, or I think he's donezo.
Yeah, I think he's banned from the building. I think he's banned from the building.
Away.
And somewhere in about 15 years, they will bring him back.
Mm-hmm.
And honor him. Exactly.
And honor him.
But he's done now.
You're dealing with the good old boys. You're dealing with the Billionaire Boys Club. And they're just like I said, Trump is getting ready to start parading around here and doing these rallies, and they don't want him in their crosshairs. That's the last
right. Remember,
person.
He almost started rebellion in the NFL. I mean, what did that owner say? Who almost lost his whole team? The inmates are running the asylum. They were like,
right.
Poor choice of words.
Right.
The whole team was like, because you know what? That is a largely black league. And if the black people in the greater wide arena of the world see you doing this, you have to answer for it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
No one wants to be that guy. You know what I'm saying? And
no, definitely.
It's just ridiculous, man. It really is.
Hey, I
So yeah, take the money and run,
Shawn Armor. We're talking with Shawn Armor. You can find him on Twitter as True_Armor. He's a great follow. Here in New York, where I've lived for more than 40 plus years, there's this thing that Amazon was coming. They were getting, people were like at first excited, I guess, that they would come in here, and then all of a sudden the backlash started because when you see that headline, Amazon chooses New York, and you're like, yay, and then all of a sudden you start to read the fine print of the deal. you start to understand about empowerment zones.
We, a giant billion-dollar company, need all this free stuff from you so we can move to your city. Mind you, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't live in New York anymore, but New York is the hub of the known universe. You know what I'm saying? It's of all the places in the world to be, New York is where people want to go, right? Financial center, art center, museums and culture. 100 years ago was Paris, right? 100 years before that, it was England. Now it's New York. God only knows what it'll be for 100 years from now. But for now, it's New York. Why do you have to give them all this stuff? They should have a presence in New York, and they should have paid through the nose to get it because it would have been worth it. The arrogance of these people, every day I hear these guys in these companies, I just see them pushing their luck, pushing their luck and pushing their luck and pushing their luck. They promise, like they always do, the low class, these low-income people, like there'll be all these jobs and all this stuff. So now you got these people excited for what everybody told us was a good deal until, like you said, people started looking into the fine print. And the only people who ended up, well, I might be wrong about this. I thought the only people who ended up wanting it was politicians. But I think I read something earlier today where they were trying to say that everybody wanted it, but a small group of vocal critics got it derailed, right? So that story sounds to me like damage control mode, and we're looking to blame again the hippies, right? A small group of loud minorities got what they wanted, which almost never happens in American politics, but it happened today. I don't know. Do you have anything on this? Who was against this? This thing.
The local New York politicians, the state senators,
but the people in the community, were they for it?
Well, it depends. It depends because it depends on polling. It depends on the research that the data is being captured. Said 70% of the people wanted Amazon here.
70%, really?
Me for one, I could say yes. I want Amazon in New York minus the $3 billion.
The freebies.
Subsidy.
Yeah,
right.
Minus the freebies.
Because that company the valuation is almost $1 trillion.
Yeah,
so
it doesn't
why
make
do
any
you
sense.
need $3 billion in subsidies when, and I've said this, beating the drum, that those subsidies or that $3 billion has to go towards the failing infrastructure. Has to go
greed
to
is ridiculous.
MTA.
Look, I think in the next 5 years, there's going to have to be an antitrust kind of suit against some of the big tech companies because no one challenges them, right? And this is a small thing. I mean, a lot of places will be happy to have Amazon, but the idea that in $3 million, you know what $3 million is a $1 trillion company? You know what I mean? It's just seeing if someone would jump through hoops for you. You know what I mean?
Well, if you look at what's happened from state to state,
right?
That's what some of these states and cities were doing. These cities were doing. They were jumping through hoops, telling Amazon
to get them there.
You could rename our town whatever you want to name it.
Wow.
You can do whatever you want. Yes.
Really? I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yes.
You can rename our town Amazonia.
You can do whatever you want to do, and it's like, come on.
You can do whatever you like.
But it comes down, like I said before that, and I said on Sunday, our Sunday evening show, I've said here, I've said all over the place that it depends on where these, because yes, they do pay well. They do. With some of these positions.
Oh, no doubt.
But the question is, you need to have...
Do you want to sell your soul to the devil? Remember, when
XYZ
Amazon comes to town, they wipe out mom and pops, laundries, mechanical shops, restaurants, hardware stores. I mean, they'll depress the fizzuck out of a place, right? And this is New York if they were in. So who would take an instant beating? All these bodegas, right? All these little hardware. I mean, when I was a kid, you know what New York had a ton of that there are no more of other than phone booths? Locksmiths. Right. Remember locksmiths were everywhere?
Yes.
They were, and now you can't find the locksmiths because you know who put the locksmith dudes out of business, right? Sears and like exactly Sears and Home Depot and like these larger kind of long before Home Depot. But anyway, like essentially big corporations which put them out because you could just go there and knock them out for cheap. And now all these old guys, like now the last New York thing, as I remember, all these guys who supposed to be knife sharpeners, and they drive by in their trucks and they dull your knives.
I don't even know if that still happens.
Those are the last.
Does that still happen?
Yeah, it used to happen in Cobble Hill, all the time. And I used to go out just for a sense of nostalgia because it reminded me of the old days. But the guy was 1,000,000 years old.
Oh, okay.
And I had a pocket knife that I used to, keep on my belt, a little Swiss Army pocket knife. And but you watch the society shift on you, and you go, all right, well, I know why we're here because everything's reactionary to something, but I don't know what it gets us in the long run. So, I don't know.
Hey, I got to do some housekeeping. We're going to close out this section of the show. Want to definitely thank you guys for listening to the pod. Best ways to listen to Shawn Armor, True_Armor. You can find him on Twitter, and you
follow
can
me
find
on
him
Twitter.
Also on YouTube. We're going to jump it.
Armor Intergalactic on YouTube.
We're going to rerun it this next segment again, but we're going to end this part of the show. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then now we're back. Once again, this is Ted Hicks, Late Night Parents. Ways to follow the show, latenightparents.com. We can talk with Shawn Armor. You can find him as True_Armor on YouTube and also on Twitter. Want to talk with you about this emergency declaration. What are your thoughts on it? It's setting a bad precedent.
Excuse me. Sorry. Excuse me.
Yeah. It's setting a bad precedent because we've seen this president set bad precedents through this term, but hey, I deem this as an emergency declaration. This is the new norm. Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to the scorn that, the open scorn that they show them. Like we were talking about the State of the Union address. And Nancy Pelosi's kind of weird side-eyed, hand clapping kind of thing. The environment is just, it doesn't
toxic.
Make any sense. Yeah, it is. Exactly.
It's totally toxic.
So why would I mean, look, Obama would not have been able to do this. He wouldn't have had the balls, right? Excuse my language, but he wouldn't have had the unmitigated gall, just the sheer, arrogance of personage to even think of doing something like this, because they would have, in their, he's not going to do anything, he's going to be a one-term president kind of mindset, they'd have launched treason. They would have launched impeachment hearing and all this stuff, and then that would have been what he would have been dealing with for the next 4 to 8 years, depending. And this way, he got out of it by just signing a lot of signing statements and sort of worked around it. But once he was gone, so were all those signing statements. Now,
well, yeah, all those executive orders get turned back.
Exactly. Now you take Trump and you go, well, the Democrats are sort of trying to be what the Republicans were, and the Republicans were what's the word? I'm about to say disloyal, obstructionists, and I mean they were obstructionists. So now the Democrats are not trying to be obstructionists, but they're also not really taking the lead to do anything. They're just sort of complaining like children in the backseat of a family trip across country as Donald Trump drives, right? I was talking to my mom. I called my mom on Valentine's Day because I'm a good kid, a good son. And we were talking about these trips that we used to take. We were having a conversation about Valentine's and love, right? And she was telling, we were talking about when we were kids, me and my 2 brothers and my 2 sisters on a road trip down to South Carolina in my dad's station wagon, the family station wagon, with my mom and dad in the front seat, 7 people, right? My mom would get up at like 4 in the morning and fry chicken and like do all this. My mom is from the South, right? So she do all this, like we had biscuits. We weren't going to be pulling into McDonald's. We rarely ate McDonald's back in those. It was a treat if we did. It's like that Eddie Murphy skit. So we were talking about the idea that, family dynamic and knowing how to like, I sort of slid off of where I was going with this, but essentially knowing how to talk to different personality types gets you more in life, right? So, I mean, the fact that you can't come up with a way, and mind you, not only the people. I'm all over the place on this, right? So let me start over. So Donald Trump and Nancy Pelosi and this whole this whole emergency declaration stems because essentially you can't talk respectfully to someone that you disagree with, right? So sort of going back to like that ride down in the family station wagon, where it was, by this time my brother had joined the military and my sister had gotten married. So like it was us, on like the 10th trip down, it's just me, my brother, and my sister, and we're small, and we're hitting each other, and he hit me, and don't put your foot on me, that whole kind of energy, right? Mm-hmm. Someone in the front, someone who's in control, your mom or your dad, has to be like, knock it off, right? So you knock it off. You be nice to people, right? You are in close confinement. And I look at Congress as close confines. I know it's a giant building. But it's the idea of there are 340 million of us, and there's only really 32 congressmen or 62 congressmen and 50 senators, right? So that's less than 600 guys.
Yeah, and 100 senators.
Yeah, they can't. Oh, right, 100. I'm sorry, 2 per state. 100 senators, and they can't get their act together, right? It's 600 guys, 640 guys. They put us through all of this, and now, the government shutdown, in my opinion, was a win for Donald Trump. He doesn't have to shut the government down again because he sort of gets what he wants. So he sets off on the next tier of getting what he wants. I mean, I don't talk politics with my liberal friends anymore. I only talk with you because they argue emotionally, and then they yell at me like it's my fault. But they're always wrong. They're always wrong. And they take the eye off the ball.
So why are they always wrong? Why are they always wrong?
You know what? It's like you're not allowed to try and be a Democrat and be against abortion. See how far that gets you. You know what I mean? There's extremism in the Democratic Party too. If I was a Democrat, if I was a Democrat and I wanted to run for something in New York City, the Democratic Party, the DNC, does not support me. You know what I'm saying? It's that simple. As sure as if I'm a transvestite, a transgender, right?
Transgender.
And I'm running in the deepest part of Georgia. They're not feeling me. Or I don't even have to be that. If I'm a Muslim, you know what I'm saying? It's still these extremes. They're not as pure as they think. The Democratic Party still have not dealt with some issues that are near and dear to black people. Instead, you lump us all together as people of color so you don't have to deal with our problem. That is quintessentially how the government deals with our problems, by not dealing with our problems. So I don't really see any coming together in any arena in the American, I'm about to say life, but in the American apparatus. I think I'm searching for words here. I think that Donald Trump, and first of all, let's look at the brass tacks of it. Do you need a wall? Are people walking into your country and just staying here and setting up life? Should you know who they are? Everyone agrees, yeah, we should know who they are. Who are these people? But somehow you want to stop it, but you don't want to put up a wall. So what is your issue, right? What kind of wall? I mean, there are placards up there already, those fence posts things. So is your wall an actual wall, or is your wall a quote-unquote wall, it's sort of a barrier so people can't get through? I mean, if the Democrats are fighting that his wall is a wall with no quotation marks and it's an actual giant wall obstruction along the 2,000-mile border, and they're saying no, and he's saying, is he saying it can only be, and he said he wasn't, I think he's come back from that. He wasn't always saying that doesn't have to be a giant physical wall. Now he's saying it could be those slats and those that we've seen, but he wants them better, like upgraded somehow. So, okay, he went from saying if you're a follower of politics, and like I said, this is why I don't have a lot of conversation with my liberal friends anymore, because he started in one place, and now he's in a different place, and they're still in the same place, no wall, right? So then if you're not going to give him a wall, what are you going to do with all these people who are coming through? Are you going to give him – he doesn't want beds for them. He doesn't – so somebody has to do something. And at the end of the day, the people voted him in charge. So you may not like it, but you have to deal with him. Now, they didn't like Obama, and they obstructed and didn't deal with him. The Democrats aren't even good enough to obstruct him. They are just being they're being snotty, I guess is the way I'm looking for. They're just sort of like, I don't like, the meanest thing they can say is, I don't like you. But at the end of the day, they can't seem to stop anything he's done. You know what I'm saying? And
well, they don't have the numbers.
Seem to have a better plan.
They don't have the numbers. They don't have the numbers.
And they don't have a lot of people, a lot of Democrats don't have a lot of faith in the Democratic Party. I was telling my buddy earlier, I'm not really a huge fan of Nancy Pelosi because she fits into the same old white guy trope, right? But since we can be a sexist society, no one goes old white lady trope, because then that would just be, what, hateful of women or something. The whole point here is you need new blood and a new view. And that new blood and new view, I think, comes with young people and young energy. And I think she and Donald Trump and everybody over 75 should not be telling people in their 20s and 30s and 40s, about their sex lives. Maybe they can tell you about your finances, but if you are, you're not running the government. You know what I'm saying? And this is where we always are. We're always squabbling about sex and who gets money to start their future when they want to give it to corporations, because corporations will give you a job at McDonald's or Taco Bell for $12 an hour now, which took almost 20 years to get them to raise for you, by the way. This is where we are. We are a quagmire. I mean, it's sort of a testament to the energy of the country, at least as far as I know it, because there's stuff going on, I'm sure, under government walls and stuff that I don't know about, that the creativity that flourishes here keeps this place afloat. And that creativity is not just art and painting and acting and, drawing and writing books. It's also how you creatively think about your problem, and that those problems are political problems as well as, just how you're going to stretch a dollar at your house. But the problem is gerrymandering and people who are never held accountable, and they sit there. And here we are, it really is an impasse. And now Donald Trump is going to shift again the tonality of the country. And it's shifted several times that I can remember. They got rid of the filibuster. That was a shift. That was around forever. They went from a 60% in the House to a 51-49 up or down vote, which was another kind of rigged thing. They denied the President of the United States a rifle pick at the Supreme Court. It just goes on and on. These guys don't pay taxes. They're talking about there for the common man. They have, 8 and 9 houses with elevators for cars in them. They've so gerrymandered this system that you can tell your if everyone this election season went to all these rallies and just said one thing, we want you to undo the gerrymander thing, they would stop going to rallies and talk about, because it's power, they don't give it up, and even when they're incompetent, they can sit there forever. And I think incompetent will eventually come back to bite you in the butt. And I think here we are, right? Along with infrastructure problems and weather problems that we're going to have, a growing society. Stop telling me that we need immigrants because we have enough Americans to make more Americans. None of their rationale for what they want makes sense to me. So like I said, I have hope that somebody will come along. I'm calling that person the unknown, right? Known. Like I think we all know him, but whoever runs for president, this whole talk of making everything civil, you just can't say that. It's not enough. But you have to take on the bully. You have to know what you're talking about, and you have to have some sense of who the enemy is, and there are enemies here, right? So we have like the Russians as an issue. We have global trade as an issue. These tariffs, whether we're being taken advantage of. We have intellectual property being stolen by the Chinese as an issue, right? We have the European Union not paying their fair share in this whole cacophony of perpetual war, right? And it just doesn't seem to end. And I don't expect it to end. I expect it to be complicated, but I also expect my leadership. And there are many ways to lead, by the way. You can lead like a king, or you can delegate, or you can have everybody come up with the best solution and you can pick one. There's a ton of ways to lead. And there's a ton of ways to be, empathetic and sympathetic. But the system that they always run on is the same cowboys and Indian warfare. I've seen it 1,000 times, right? The Indians always have a bow and arrow and a headdress, and the cowboys always have long whiskers and a wide-brimmed hat and, a trumpet. And I've seen it in 1,000 cowboys. And once I'd like to see the Indians show up with a rocket launcher, and and just to switch the game up, because I know how this plays out. And it's a back-and-forth game. Excuse my metaphor, by the way. I don't want to disrespect cowboys or Indians. I was about to say, because there was trouble on both sides, but that wouldn't be funny. But, it's this idea of this, like, what's that Tom Cruise movie where watch, which, repeat, which I kind of like. It's like you just keep waking up in your own Groundhog Day of political nonsense, and nothing happens. And then they keep talking about, they take credit for, like, just the goofiest stuff. So now here we are. This was a long time coming, longer than 20 years coming, longer than 30 years coming. But I think it kind of got hot this fast around when people started, like, really denigrating President Carter in, like, the 70s. And like they say, the ship of state turned slowly. All this, I hate the president because I'm the opposing opposition, it started with Carter. And I think it peaked with Obama, and there was some racial overtones to it. But that whole 30 years of sort of like this political warfare so you could raise more money and all this stuff got us here. And now you want people to be civil. I mean, we've had 2 congressmen shot, right? We had Gabby Gifford and who's the Republican?
Steve Scalise.
Yeah, thank you, Steve Scalise, right? One on each side. I mean, crazy people are every place. No one has the high ground here. Or if someone does have the high ground, no one maintains the high ground for very long, as the society and its wants and its needs in our society, the American society, shifts. And that's the way it's supposed to be. In Europe, they're a lot more stagnant. They're still happy to do stuff they did in some places 800 years ago. Right? Here, blue jeans took the world by storm. Rock and roll took the world by storm. And it's because, you can think new, you're allowed to. I think in other places, you start thinking interesting thoughts, you will have the cops show up at your house at 4 a.m. and, your family, if they see you again, will see you in like 3 years because you were, I'm thinking of some of these Muslim countries, and I'm thinking about how the Christians were, heck, just 100 years ago. So, I mean, we as Americans are unique to the planet. And I think they keep watering that down with people who don't want to be Americans. They just want to take part in our economic system. And that whole thing lends itself to giving money to politicians to get them to say things that the Americans don't want. And now the American people, wherever we are, I don't know what the average American wants, because I don't think we're really represented by anybody in Congress. And they're, like I said earlier, in this whole this perpetual Cowboys and Indians fight for less taxes, I think, and more war. I mean, I can't even figure out what they want, but I don't know how long they can sustain it. I really don't. I know we got 16 intelligence agents. Let me just wrap it up. We got 16 intelligence agencies, and we've got 5 military branches. And shame on both those guys. What is that, 21 organizations? Shame on both those guys, both those types of organizations. If America falls into the wayside, then every state becomes its own country, because they broke this unique thing. And God, I don't ever remember declaring a state of emergency in America. It's only been local for floods or, a political protest, like when the Watts riot.
But just like you said, it's changing the game. The
game
has just changed again.
Yeah.
Just wanting to
it's like
just
the beef
interject
stew
myself.
thing. I mean, when is this not beef stew? You know what I'm saying? So
just want to interject that a topic you had mentioned a few minutes ago. Number one, there's no politician, I don't care whom you are, that should dictate a woman's reproductive system. That's out the gate. So whether or not what you see or what you disagree with abortion, you should not be discussing a woman's body. Period.
We can't be discussing a woman's body?
Well, we should not be discussing a woman's reproductive
rights. I don't know.
Yeah.
I want to be able to walk up and tell a woman, go have a baby. You don't have a baby. That would be a nice power. I feel like Superman if I could do that. But in the real world, I totally agree with you. I mean,
I just think there's certain things where we're, we continue to get involved, and it's like we run down that party line, and it's just like, okay.
And you know why? Some of these things stay around because you can raise money on them. You know, oh my God, the baby killers. Send us $1,000. There's a lot of charlatans around here still. If the government looked into charlatanry, I don't even know what you call it, con man-ism or whatever you want to call it. I mean, they could lock up a lot of people. I mean, the best way to steer from people is by faith, right? Have them hope and wish and pray. Oh, look at this poor Nigerian girl with flies on her face. Send us $1 a month, and a million people see that, and a million people see your $1 that month. You've got $1 million, and this is some of what's going on here. If you could control some of the charlatanry, that would turn down the noise in this country, and you could get to really solving these problems, right? But yeah, what you said go to what I say. I don't want a whole bunch of old white guys telling me what I should be doing, and I expect women don't want a whole bunch of men telling them what they should be doing all the time. But having said that, as a society, you can't just govern yourselves, right? So there should not be, if we're a society, there should not be a black society and a Puerto Rican society all living, here. There shouldn't be just a woman's society. We're a democracy, right? We're a melting pot. I mean, you understand what I'm saying?
No, totally. I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying based on what
we have to cross-pollinate, essentially. We just have to cross-pollinate. But, we absolutely agree on this. But, cross-pollinate. I think that people aren't talking to each other, so.
Right. You got to make sure it's an actual conversation.
Exactly.
People can't be talking over each other or just to the point. And I had to tell a colleague this the other day where I was a mediator for there were two, they were colleagues, but they were also subordinates that were having an issue, work in the same department, and they never actually talk to each other. So we'll sit down, we'll have a team meeting, and both of them are just trying to one-up each other.
Right.
To the point, and I said, this is what I'm seeing here is, I said, this is the Democrats and the Republicans.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said,
instead of solving the problem, we're going to stew about the problem.
Right. And there's not going to be any solution.
Yeah.
There's not going to be any solution at all, and we're going to just sit here, and before you know it, 3 or 4 years are going to pass, and guess what? I'm up for re-election. I'm just going to go address my base, and the heck with the other base.
Tell them who the enemy is.
Tell them who the enemy is. Give me your money in small donations because, now it's kind of like outlawed to take money from super PACs, even though it was everyone has done it, but now all of a sudden we've got.
And here's the thing: now you have to work. I mean, I don't know how many. I don't know if you have to work harder, but it's got to be harder to get $5, $20 from 50,000 people than to take $100,000 from one guy. You know what I mean? So if the bad guys don't care about morality and all this stuff, they're going to raise more than you.
The guy
if you're raising $5, then they got to be in love with you. I got to be in love with you to give you $5 in a you know. So now,
but the guy who gave you $100,000 is in control of you because you owe him big time.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm saying these guys have no moral core anyway. I mean, the bad guys are going to take the money. You know, it's Casino when they burn, not Casino. It's Goodfellas when they burned down the restaurant. Not good. Yeah, what's it called? When he got into bed with what was Goodfellas, right? When they burned down what's the name of that Malibu club? Anyway.
You talking about Sam Rothstein?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's it saying?
I'm not sure. Casino.
You know, I'm thinking of The Godfather when I'm all over the place.
Corleone.
Right.
Corleone.
Right, exactly. So he gets in the bed. He comes. You know, I'm all over the place with my gangster movies. It was with Joe Pesci with the problem in his restaurant, and he goes and to Rob De Niro, and Rob De Niro tells him, "Don't worry about it. Hey, I'll help you run this restaurant, and he'll be cool." And yeah, anyway. But the point of the whole thing is, at this point, it's become, you know, literally like enemies in the tent, like shooting at each other, and the tent is the country, right? So instead of having one ideology and another having another ideology, which used to be, you know, more of what it was, now it's just this just condescension, and like Democrats think Republicans are Hicks and stupid, and Republicans think Democrats are all socialists and amoral. You know what I mean? It's a caricature. So
hey, all Hicks aren't stupid, all right?
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. The whole thing
but
is
listen,
just.
I'm not going to say they're very, very smart, but I will tell you this much. This emergency declaration, he's going to receive it from both ends, okay? He's going to receive it from the Democratic end, and he's going to receive it from the far right end. So the Shawn Hannity, the Rush Limbaugh, but
those guys. Yeah, but those guys don't move the meter on this guy. Do you notice that?
Oh, I think they
people
totally do. What are you talking about? That's all he does.
Trump
is watch TV, listen to radio, and listen to the
I know, but Trump is sitting at 87% approval rating with Republican base. 87% approval rating. So they can talk all the smoke they want. They're not moving that needle that much. I mean, 87% is ridiculous. No one has those numbers. Yeah, it's retarded. No one has those numbers. So it's like in the election when someone went against them, they took a hit from the base, and then people began to be afraid to criticize them. Just because we watch liberal television, right? So every morning I watch Gayle King on CBS this morning. Mm-hmm. Because she infuriates me. Her whole thing is giving editorials.
How do you like that show?
It's just horrible. Show? Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible.
So why do you watch
it? It's maddening. Dude,
why do you watch it?
You know why? Because those three, Nora O'Donnell, Charles, I forget his name, and the new woman that they hired like 2 months ago, she says stuff, and they look at her like, I can't believe she said that. Like, so I'm waiting for her to man, it's hard to say if they even like her. Because Gayle King is very girl, you know, she's very Oprah, and they're all very straight-laced journalists trying to get through the morning news. I mean, she cracks them up a lot because she says stuff like, we would say to each other because we have no filter. But at the same time, when she's reporting a story, every story, she gives her personal opinion. And you are never supposed to do that. And this is, again, moving the bar, right? I mean, you're supposed to get the news so you can make of it what you will. Now, they're telling you the news, right? I mean, it's slanted from the way they write it. And then the person delivering it is giving you personal editorials, making the story more about the teller than the tale. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's crazy that this is passing for news.
I have a love-hate relationship with some of those morning shows.
I hate to say it, but at least it's better than like the Today Show. The Today Show is hot trash.
I don't watch. You'll laugh. I watch a combination of Good Day New York, which is a local Fox affiliate.
Right, I remember Good Day New York.
I watch it. It's a fun show. There's always different characters on there, and like I said, it's, hey, we're going to do this segment on XYZ.
Right.
Hey, we're going to talk
about
Good
Day New York, when like they do banter, they do cooking shows like the Today Show stuff. But when they tell you the story, they tell you the whole, like not the whole story, but they tell you the story, and then they leave it at that. No one, well, at least the last time I watched it, no one was like, oh my goodness, good for him. And I'm like, it's supposed to be a news story. Like, you know what I mean? Or like condemning somebody. Like if you hear he's not guilty yet, you shouldn't be saying that you know. It's all so very. It's so loose now, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
Well, the filters have been changed, and that high grade, that high level of performance or professionalism doesn't exist anymore.
It's gone. Yeah,
it's long gone. I tell you.
Yeah.
So if I'm not watching Good Day New York with the local people, I'll turn to News 12. And I think I said that on our previous episode that we just recorded. I'll turn to watch News 12 because it's local Long Island type stuff.
Right.
Hey, on 35th Street and such Avenue, this is what's happening. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, that pertains to me because guess what? When I'm driving to work today, I won't head that way. I'll make sure because the traffic is backed up 35 minutes. Oh, hey, I won't head on to the Northern State Expressway. But and I got to tell you, I watch fun shows now. I watch like Good Morning Football. I watch Mike Florio, who talks about football talk on NBC Sports Network because they talk. They provide that banter, they drone, and it's fun. They're like, hey, we're not talking politics. We're talking about A, B, or C. That's that.
Right.
And sometimes you need to cleanse yourself because I found myself on certain mornings watching MSNBC or watching CNN, even turning to watch the Fox and losing your mind. Losing your mind. And I got to tell you, I don't know if you've ever watched the Sinclair broadcast news where it's totally heavily right-leaning. It's kind of like watching CNN or watching MSNBC.
Yeah, we have one down here. But see, this is why I tell I love politics, but when I at the height of when I was collecting, I was my own news gathering service, I must have read 3 papers when I lived in New York. I read the Times, the Daily News, and the Post. The Times crossword puzzle, the Daily News crossword puzzle, and the Post jumble was just like the bomb we would sit around and do them. But you read all this, and then you see how it turned out at night. This happened in the morning. Okay, how did it turn out at night. And while in between that time, you'd read these 3 papers on the same topic and what they said. And the New York Times was in one place, the Daily News was in another place, all on the same story, unless it was a giant scandal, right? And everybody was allowed to condemn it, right? So sex scandals, they all write the same thing. Political scandals, they all write different things.
It's far leaning left, leaning, middle centrist left, and then there's the far leaning right.
Centrist? The Daily News would be centrist?
I
thought the Daily News would be left, and the Post.
Yeah. They would lean.
Right.
They would lean left. There's something that they
Post
might
is right,
lean towards the middle.
The Post is super right.
Totally the right. And I tell you,
what is the Times?
I will sit there and watch the Post and read the Post just to get. Hey, I want to see out of a different lens. How are they seeing?
Yes, thank you. Because I didn't agree with much in the New York Post, but I read it to see what people who agreed with the New York Post were reading. And you know what I mean? So now everybody I know gets all the information from all super liberal or super conservative sites, and there is no in between. And I tell my Facebook friends, you're lucky to have me because I'm the only, like, on most of my friends' friends list, I'm assuming, who, because I always get into it with their friends, I'm one of the few friends at least who has enough input from different people that I can share some of it with you because all your friends are exactly alike. You know what I mean? You're all very different shades of red or very different shades of blue or very different shades of violet, but you're all like the same shade. Meanwhile, I got my friend Phil, who's a super conservative nut job, who never liked the police shooting he didn't like, right? And I got over here, I got another friend, Pam, who thinks, you should take all the money from the rich people and redistribute it. Talking to both these people in one room, it's ridiculous. But that's what we're supposed to be doing as Americans, right? You're supposed to get a drink, whether it's a glass of beer or wine or whiskey, and gather your friends, cook a little something, maybe a barbecue, maybe a fancy dinner, who knows, but talk about these issues. And they somehow train people not to engage in politics and religion. And that's where we need it the most. I'm always talking politics and religion, but I don't talk politics and religion with people who don't know what they're talking about. And that's the difference. So instead of having every conversation because they want you to have a conversation, kind of feel them out and then go, this person doesn't know jack bone diddly about anything. Or, if you're talking about cooking and someone goes, oh, man, the best meal I ever had, I had some ramen noodles out of a mug with some ketchup, and then I hit it with some hot sauce. And you'd be like, you're what now? Oh, I'm a chef. Yeah, no, I'm not talking to you. And it's that kind of simple logic. And not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but it just says that you are positioned in a higher place than he is. So unless he's asking you for help for something, oh, wow, yeah, I